Well, hey there, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I am your host, Janeen Alley. You are listening to Becoming the CEO of Your Life today, and we are talking about breaking free from your inhibition instinct. So, we're just going to dive right into the content today, and I'm going to help you to define your inhibition instinct. A lot of this is actually how we've been educated. Not that you are brilliant. This has nothing to do with who you are as a person, but I want you to kind of see today that this has a lot to do with factors that are not in your control because of the way that the educational system is structured. So what happens for us is we've been taught ultimately to play small, and I'm going to talk about how that happens today, but we end up holding back. We end up feeling like what we have to offer and share and do in the world isn't good enough. So if you are listening to the podcast today, I hope that you feel like you have a bigger message to share with the world, because I really do feel like each of us has a really big message to share with the world, something that is going to help make other people's lives better. So you probably identify as someone who's a creator. You love to create, but you also know that there is this next level that scares you a little bit. Something that you want to create that feels very personal to you, feels very intimate. And you know that you're the one to create it or say it or write about it, whether it's through your art or services that you provide or coaching or their brilliant business idea or whatever it is. And you think to yourself, oh my gosh, wouldn't it be so cool if I could do this thing? And yet you feel this something is blocking your voice, and you know you're holding back, and you feel it as kind of this sense of self-doubt. But I'm here to tell you today, you don't have a problem with self-doubt. Self-doubt is actually a symptom of your inhibition instinct, because like I said, this is something that we learn how to do. This is something that is culturally conditioned from the time that we are very young, and it keeps us comparing, and whether it's to other people or industry standards or whatever, and ultimately playing very small in this message or mission that we want to share. And so a lot of the things that I'm going to be talking about today I have learned from Tara Moore's book, Playing Big. If you want to go and read that book, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of research and information in the book, and I'm going to be sharing, like I said, a lot of the things that I've learned from her. So we're at a time and place in history where women are more liberated than we've ever been, and yet we are disempowered. And one of the key factors in this disempowerment is our education system, unfortunately. Ironically, women earn about 60% of master's degrees in the United States. I know my daughter graduated from high school a couple years ago. The three scholars that they celebrated and gave speeches on stage, the valedictorian, two salutatorians, and they were all women in her class. So girls are, statistically speaking, are doing better in school than boys. Girls have an average GPA of 3.1, and boys have an average GPA of 2.9. And it's not that boys aren't capable. If you have boys, school-age boys, there's a lot of different factors that play into this. I read a book called Boys Adrift by Leonard Sachs that's super helpful. So if you are curious about why this is and why boys are not excelling right now in school like the girls, I want you to go and pick that book up. It's very good. However, even though, like I mentioned, 60% of master's degree programs in the United States are graduating classes are women, less than 10% of Fortune 500 company CEOs are women in this. I mean, that's crazy. That's a crazy discrepancy, right? It's not that women aren't capable, right? They're proving themselves in so many different ways, but they're not taught the right skills from the time that they were young in order to take on these high leadership positions. And I understand that this probably isn't your goal to be a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, but you're listening to this podcast because you want to become the CEO of your life. And there are some skills that I want to teach you today that's going to help you to step more into that leadership position. So when we're talking about girls excelling at school, I want you thinking about what exactly are we talking about? And I know when I was reading through Tara Moore's content, I'm like, oh my gosh, these are the same things that I excelled at in order to get good grades. So here's some of the things that she says. She says, we need to have respect for and obedience to authority figures. We need to be careful rule followers. We need to people please, and we need to succeed in an externally imposed framework. And I know that I have carried these same traits of getting all the good grades. I have carried these into the work that I've done with coaches and building my business. And I did the work, I joined programs and they were amazing. I went through and I mean, just like the amazing A student that I was in school, I did all the things and I did them really well. In fact, I was even highlighted a few times in different coaching programs that I did for the work that I did. And yet I wasn't getting the results that I wanted to. And a part of me still felt kind of stifled. I felt a little bit suffocated in some of these programs because I wasn't really connecting with what I wanted to say, and I wasn't doing it the way that I wanted to do it, and kind of feeling like it had to be done this way and it had to be right in order for me to put it out there in the world where there is no rights. It's just the way that you want to do it. And I understand that there are, coaches will talk about proven formulas. There might be a better way of doing something, but if it doesn't feel good to you, you don't want to do it. That's the thing. I didn't really know how to trust my gut and to kind of follow my own lead on things. And so these are habits that I know are keeping girls and women playing small. It translates into mid-levels in organizations where we are mediocre. And I mean, taking on mediocre jobs and playing at kind of a mediocre level. And I know you're not here for mediocre. And I know the work that you want to create is also not mediocre. So this does not translate over well into leadership positions and change makers and becoming innovators in what it is that we want to do. So in school, as students, we have to learn how to adjust and pivot in different classes with different teachers to figure out what each of these different authority figures want, and then shape ourselves and our work accordingly. We become really good at becoming chameleons in this kind of environment, right? We are adaptable in this setting. We see this at every level of academia, from elementary school all the way through professional programs. And just from my observation as a mom, I have 2 boys and 2 girls. My girls seem to have a little bit more emotional intelligence from an earlier age than my boys. And I think this also plays into this factor of women being able to pick up on nonverbal cues faster, and in these environmental situations, in these educational situations where we gain the ability to rapidly perceive and interpret and meet the expectations of other people. So yet, even with all of that, to really be effective and make a distinct impact on our communities and make waves and make positive change in the way that we want to, we need a different set of skills. This is what's required. We need to effectively challenge authority, not just adapt to it and morph to it and be the chameleon. We need to influence authority figures, not just please them. And these are critical skills for playing big. My husband's in the military, and one of the things that I tell him and I tell other people I would never do well in the military, because I'm always questioning things. I'm like, well, why are we doing it like that? Or it would be way more effective or efficient to do things this way. And it used to drive me crazy, but now I've fortunately learned to let a lot of that stuff go because it's not my job and it's not my business. But I would never fit well in an environment like that, because I am somebody who, like I said, questions things and pushes back sometimes. We need more of this. And I know I need to develop more of this moving forward. I'm learning how to do this, and it's really fun. But besides those 2 things, I think we also need to be able to trust our own inner wisdom. And this is something that like I said, I've been doing over the last year more and more and more. We have to understand that the value that we bring doesn't just come from information that we have learned or even mastered. It comes from who we are. This is part of us. And we need to connect to that. We need to trust the things that we know. And this is impossible to do when we're trying to apply our getting good grades skills to that one person who evaluates our work. Because in the real world, there are millions of people who might come across our work. And if someone doesn't like our work, the chances are someone else is going to, right? Maybe not right out of the gate. It might take a little bit of work to find your people or to get your message or idea really dialed in so that you connect with your person. But what happens with this educational model is one person doesn't like it, and it feels like you get a big fat F in the real world, right? You fail. But the truth is, you know what gets results? Failures. It takes the failures and the ability to get back up time and time again. And this requires self-trust. It requires this unwavering conviction in your vision for what it is that you want to create. I mean, part of being an entrepreneur is being that vision bearer. You've got the standard and you're parading it around and you're like, who wants to come with me? I know how to do this and I am here to help my people, right? So another problem with our modern day educational system is it largely involves absorbing information from the outside and then internalizing it. So this leaves us looking for the expert when we get older, right? To give us the answers for the task before us. When we are looking around for how things should be done. So we're looking to our peers. Again, we're looking to industry standards. If we're in business, right? And what I've learned is that there are no shoulds. We're just all kind of making things up as we go along. So somebody who has like the golden standard of like the way that things should be done. I've even had a coach say that. I've had multiple coaches say that, but the truth is they learned that from their own experience, right? Just like you can learn how to do your thing from your own experience, right? And stepping out in this new way that feels a little bit scary. We all have to do that in order to live, in order to play big, ultimately, is what you want. So, and I feel like women do this all the time. If it's not an expert that we're looking to, it's the next degree, it's the book, it's the endless research online that we spend hours doing. I was coaching somebody the other day who was wanting to apply for a different job. And she was saying, I'm looking at these job applications to fill out, and I fit like 8 out of the 10 criteria bullets that they're putting up there for who should apply. And she's like, so I just don't feel like I'm qualified. And I'm like, what's the problem with applying? If you're not going to apply to the job, you're in the exact same situation, right? Or you apply for the job and it's a no, you're in the same situation, right? However, if you do apply, is there a possibility that they're like, you know what, we can educate you on these other things. We really like you. We want you to have the job, even though you don't fit 2 of the bullets, right? But these are all ways that we talk ourselves out of playing a bigger game. So becoming the CEO of your life requires the opposite. It requires that we access what we already know. It requires that we access past education that we've received and the inner wisdom or guidance that is there within us all the time, depending on what the situation is calling for, right? It also requires that we trust the value of what we already know, that we don't need more information. We don't need more certifications. We don't need more education to make a difference today. I'm not talking you out of never doing these things, but it's not required in order for us to move forward. And it requires that we put it out there into the world. We have to put the stuff out there. We can't just write and write and write and write and write and never get any feedback from the audience that we're writing for, right? And I know the value of writing for yourself, but at some point, if you want to make a difference, you have to step out. And with this unwavering conviction, right? Not that I am right, this is the right way of doing something, but in the belief in your message and in the belief in yourself that regardless of what comes your way, you're going to be able to figure it out. You're going to be able to trust yourself along the way, that you will find the answers that you need. And I recognize that we need both things. I'm not, like I said, trying to talk you out of getting more education. I love to learn, but we need to be, yes, we do need to be learning and consuming and all that stuff. It is valuable, or at least bringing people into our world who do know what we don't. If you're building a team of people, you're not going to know all of the pieces, right? But we also need to learn how to go within. We need to learn how to connect with our own creative ideas and insights and experiences and trust the things that we already know. We have to be able to also, at the same time, recognize and honor our personal strengths. And I have been coaching people lately that are not very good at this. I was coaching a woman the other day, it was a bookkeeper, and she was having a hard time just creating a bio for her website. And she has a very successful business, but she's like, I know that I need to do this, but I'm super paralyzed every time I sit down to create, because she felt like it should be done a certain way. And she wasn't that way. She's like, I'm not like this flowery, bio kind of person. So I started asking her some questions. I asked, okay, so what are you interested in when you read someone's bio? And one of the things that she said was, she's like, I'm actually not really interested in their education. I'm like, all right, well, don't talk about that. Why do you like bookkeeping, or what makes you a good bookkeeper? And at the end of like talking to her for 3 minutes, I'm like, okay, so you're a straight shooter. You are a zero fluff kind of gal, and you geek out over a beautifully balanced P&L. Write that. I'm like, if I saw that on somebody's bio and I was looking for a bookkeeper, I'm like, I want you. I want you to help me with this, because I'm not good at any of this stuff. And I don't geek out over numbers. I actually don't really like numbers very much, even though I know their value. I don't really like them. So we want to lean into those kinds of things. It's what makes you unique. And you have to understand in this process, and I know you know this, but this is just reminding you, you're not for everyone, right? Just focus on who you're here to serve. The last thing that I want to talk about is I want to speak to the flaws in our educational system about getting A's and graduating summa cum laude, because it requires little to no self-promotion in this process. Maybe a little tiny bit. I know when my husband was interviewing for dental schools, he did have to do the interviews. You have to go and you have to talk to somebody and you have to talk about yourself, right? But for the most part, what it requires is great work that you hand into a teacher to get a good grade, right? Or to get a grade. And I want to read you this portion of Playing Big from Tara Moore, because I felt like she could say it much better than I could in this moment. So she said, girls in school don't have to navigate the difficult territory that adult women do, being high achievers without threatening peers or coming across as unlikable or unfeminine. I want you to let that sink in for a second, because we have a lot of choice words in our society about women who are the high achievers, women who do threaten peers, and who come across as unlikable and unfeminine, right? It's not fair, right? In school, girls can be excellent students with their homework and test performance without their peers even knowing about that excellence. Yes, in some classes, they also need to raise their hand and contribute in class, but they certainly don't need to speak about their academic accomplishments explicitly or advocate for themselves. I'm continuing to read from Tara's book. She says, this helps school fit squarely into girls' comfort zones. You can get the gold stars and be self-deprecating at the same time, but it leaves us totally unprepared and unpracticed in the art of making our accomplishments visible when we want to make a difference. Compared to succeeding in the work world, it's relatively easy for girls to excel in school because they can do great work without having to defy feminine norms or navigate the likability costs that come with women's self-promotion. So I know for myself, for years, I just kept my blinders on and focused on creating excellent work so that crossing my fingers that people would notice, right? And I got to a certain place where I realized what I was doing. I was thinking to myself, okay, if I teach the class or if I create the course, someone, and I don't even know who this person is, but they would come along, someone would come along and say, this is amazing. You are amazing. Let me find a bunch of clients for you to work with. I will promote you. It's kind of like, if you build it, they will come. This is not real world. This does not happen. So if this is something that you are currently feeling really uncomfortable about, if this self-promotion idea really scares you because you think this is laced with ego or arrogance, and it just ultimately feels very slimy to you and very inauthentic and awkward, I want you thinking about what you gravitate towards, right? I mean, I know, like, I want to know what people are doing. I want to know if they're my person. And so it's not because of the self-promotion. It's like, here, this is what I do for you, or this is what I can do for you. This is what I do for people in my business. Are you interested? You think about the way that children share their creations kind of with this unapologetic abandon, right? They want to show you what they've created with pride, and they get really excited about it. And this is before they've learned to adapt and conform to these cultural societal norms that kind of squelch this instinct that they have about the creation process. And we get to a point in our lives where we feel like this natural process of our lives to create and to share is wrong, and it's egotistical and it's undesirable. But you're not going to share your creations with the same energy as a child. I totally get it. But wanting to, like having this true desire to connect with other people in the process, to bring people with us and to help other people along the way, wanting to share with other people our creations and our ideas and successes is true freedom. That is freedom. It's the freedom to be expressive and to be excited and to be alive and to be playing big and to get in the arena and to be down there doing the work. And I want you to know that this is possible to create and share these creations, these amazing ideas that you have with the world with ease and with peace and delight and fun. This is what's natural for us before we are taught to conform and snuff our inner light. So one of the things that's come up in coaching recently is how to be recognized from a lifetime of really unique accomplishments and challenges that can be integrated into our own sense of self. I think we're not really thinking along these lines often, particularly of the things that we've overcome or the things that we've created or the people or the projects that we've nurtured along the way. I was chatting with a woman who co-facilitates a program that I'm involved in for a nonprofit organization. And she got hired. She was telling me kind of her hiring story of why she got the job. And she was saying that the woman who hired her was like, hey, if you've got 7 kids, you can do anything. Right. But oftentimes what I'm finding, particularly when I'm coaching for this nonprofit organization, is women are often downplaying the experiences that they've had. You know, they may have had a lot of experience in the work, but it's been interrupted by, being a stay-at-home mom for a period of time, or, the upheaval of moving, which happens a lot in military families. This is a organization that supports military families. And that plays a lot into kind of having a career that's disrupted, right? Having families, moving, all these things that we're juggling. However, there is a certain skill set that we acquire from doing those kinds of things. If we take an honest look, this is how we really know and understand our own competence and our own strength and our own resilience and our own love and our own compassion for people, is when we're looking in a broader sense of who we are. It is the way that we can connect to ourselves and really embrace who we are. And we do this by 3 different ways. We do this by really connecting to our core. What is it that we want to share? How are we different from other people out there? How is this unique? And creating to that core message of wisdom that's there, and also who we are as a person. And also really fueling your creative fire. I've talked about this a little bit on the podcast, and this is something that I've talked about actually quite a few years ago on the podcast, is fueling your creative fire and being able to generate energy. And I'm talking about energy for good ideas and energy to put it out there into the world. You've got to fuel your creative fire. I know when I am working out and I'm eating really well and I'm getting in sunshine and all the things that I know are good for me, I'm excited to share. I'm excited to reach out. Right. But if I'm not doing those things, I feel very sluggish, and I don't have that fire, or I don't have that connection with my people to reach out. The last thing is you need to learn how to embody your energetically aligned message. So this is really learning how to walk the talk. I know that you have something that you want to put out there in the world, and you need to learn how to align yourself more and more and more with that thing. You might really believe it, but you're not 100% aligned in the way that you're living your life right now. And so the more that we can do that, the more it becomes believable for other people. And we need to do this with this unwavering conviction and unapologetic self-trust in ourselves and in our message and in what it is that we want to do. So I am here to help you. If you need help with this, breaking free from your inhibition instinct, the thing that is holding you back right now, that makes it feel like you're kind of drowning in a little bit of self-doubt and fear. And even if you've done a lot of creation, I know a lot of you have, even if you've done all of that and you're still like, this is really holding me back, let's connect. I want to talk to you. So, yeah, just reach out to me, janeenalley.com/CEO. I have these trust assessments going on. In a few weeks, I'm going to have an amazing webinar. I'm really excited about it. I'm creating it as we speak, and it's going to be awesome. But in order to connect now, this is the way. So janeenalley.com/CEO. It is a free call. It is not a sales call. It's just a connection call. So go ahead and book that, janeenalley.com/CEO. And thank you guys so much for joining me today. It was super fun for you to create this episode. I would say it was super fun for me to create this episode. I'm not sure if that rolled off my tongue right. But anyway, I will see you guys next week. Take care. Bye.